Yes, sir. Good evening. I'm Christian J. Calipayan from BSCpE-3, and now I will simulate the problem 2.4 for the and so this is already coded, and I will explain it. So first the line. This line is the example of input sequence, which is x equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And this is the array example. So, for the second line, the the n equals length of x, and that is the length of the sequence of x. So, for this line, uh, n equals, for this line, the line calculated the length of the input sequence x and store it the variable n. So as we can see, this is the n, the value of length of equals x. So n will ask the value later in the code to look each index of the sequence. Then the second line is the x equals 1, 0, 1, n equals the present initialized sequence S1 with zeros. So uh, this line, this line uh, initialize the output sequence of x1. I don't know this line. This line is initialize output for x1 with 0. The 0 function create a row vectors of length and filled with zeros, it will use to store the value of x1. So this line again are start with loop that will enter it over it index of the input sequence x. So we'll use the loop variable n to replace the current index. So, so this line also are the line check whether the indicates n negative 3 and n plus 4. So as we can see, are within the bounds of the input sequence x. If either index out of bound, we won't be able to compute the corresponding terms in the formula for x1. So we'll skip the interaction of loop formula. So for this line naman, for this line, x1 of n equals to 2 times n of n negative 3 plus 3 times x of n plus 4 negative x of n. So this line compute the value of x n. Using the formula give the problem, we access the necessary value of x by indexing with n negative 3 and n plus 4 and subtract the value of x of n. So that was the end. So this the mark of the loop over all this code required uh I don't know code reading the sequence x computes the new sequence 1 using the formula given the problem and return to resulting sequence. If any of the indicate required compute of the formula are out of the bounds, so this is corresponding value of x is set to 0. So I will run now, see the pulse. So this is the output 0 0 0 22 0 0 from 0. That's the output for the exercise. So this is the second problem that I will simulate. So, so as we can see, the second problem was very similar for the code. So, so the code is very similar to the code we used in the previous code problem. With a few small difference, we still calculate the length. So as we can see, the length is our calculate length. And how to sequence x and x and initialize the output sequence the x2 0. So however the loop we only need to check whether the index n plus 5. So plus 5 and uh, is within the bound of input sequence x. We need to compute the value of x to sub n using the formula given the problem with the appropriate indicates of x. If the index n plus 5 is out of bound, we skip this iteration of a loop of set of n. So this this line this line it represents our array with is the array of the value of x, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, the example input sequence or the sample array. So I will explain line by line. So this line n equals length sub x, length of sequence x. So this line calculate the length of input sequence x and store the stores the value of n, which use this value later in the code of the loop uh, over each index of the sequence. So the third line x2 equal to 0 sub 1 n is initialize sequence x2 with 0. Output sequence x2 with 0. The 0 function create a row vector of line n filled with 0, which we'll use to store the value of x2. So for the n, for this line, uh, for the n, for the n line in start loop, it is a start loop that will iterate over each index of the input sequence. Think it will use the loop variable n to refer the current index. So, so the check for indicator line for this row this line check whether the index n plus 5 is within the bound of input sequence x. So if it is not, we won't be able to compute the corresponding term in the formula for x2. So we'll skip in the iteration for this loop. Then the last line x2 sub n equals to 4 times x sub 4 plus n plus 5 times x sub n plus 5 plus x plus 2 times 5 times x sub n. So this line compute the value of x to n using the formula given the problem. We uh, we access the necessary value of x by index with 4 times x and uh, n plus 5 and n, and multiply this within appropriate contact. So overall the code require the sequence x compute with the new uh, it is compute with the new season sequence x to using the formula given the problem and return the resulting sequence if the index required compute the formula is out of bounds. The corresponding value of x2 is set to 0. So I will start to run to see the function, the output. So the output is below. So the output, uh, output above. So the output is 52, 63, 74, 0, and the rest is 0, 0, 0, 0. So that is the output. So sir, this is like the problem 3. So the code are already coded. I will explain it every line. First, I read the problem. X3 sub n equals nu sub n minus 5u sub n minus 5 and minus 10u sub n minus 10 plus 5u and minus 15. Uh, first first line is in minus no equals 0 to 20, which is define the range of value for a random 0 to 20. 0 to 20. The second line x3 minus equals 10 times 10 greater than 0 minus 5 times sub n greater than 5 minus 10 times n greater than 10 and plus 5 times sub n greater than 15. So this line define the x3 sub n using the conditional statement. N greater than 0 condition evaluate to 1, which is true. For value of the greater than or equal to 0, um, and 0 is equal to false. Uh, Otherwise specified to false function. Similarly, the other condition n greater than 5 and n greater than 10 and n greater than 15 evaluate to 1 for values of n greater than or equal to 5, 10, and 15 respectively. The result x3 vector is the sum of 10 times the condition n greater than 0 minus 5 times the condition of n greater than 5 minus 10 times times the condition 10 equals to greater than equals to 10 and plus 5 times the condition. The third line is stem sub n and x3. This line create a stem plot of x3 sub n using the stem function. Then x level the x level sub n of this line are add to level to the x-axis. So later we will see the graph or the diagram of function. The y level x3 sub n is level add to level to the y-axis. Then the last title flat ab x3 sub n. So add title to the plot. All in all, the summary, the code define the discrete here discrete time signal x3n that is combinational of unit step function with different amplitude and delays. The resulting signal then flattened using step plot. So now I will run to see the output diagrams. So here's the output. Bottom X looks like. So as we can see, sir, this is the x-axis. The vertical line and the horizontal line are the y-axis. So the pointing, every pointing are different. It has different function. So from the x3 and x-axis, stain are flatted to from 5 5 points, then down to another 5 points with leveling to the 5 in x-axis. Then for the third row, also 5 pointer, which is included, which is indicated to y-axis. So as we can see here, from 10, 12, 13 to 14, they are pointed. Then the fourth row of pointed are leaving the zero axis. So my